The following program is paid for by Absolute Mortgage, a division of Pinnacle Capital Mortgage Corporation. Absolute Mortgage Company, NMLS number 81395 and Washington CL number 81395 is an equal opportunity housing lender. Tina Mitchell, MLO number 145420, is a licensed loan originator with Absolute Mortgage. Visit absoluteloans.com or call 888-90-HOMES for cost information.
You're listening to The Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, sponsored by Absolute Mortgage, a division of Pinnacle Capital Mortgage Corporation. Now, in the studio, local mortgage and finance expert, Tina Mitchell.
Welcome to The Money Hour on 570 KVI, the Sunday, October 20th show. I'm your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell. Thank you for taking time to talk money. I'm here every Sunday at 11 a.m. right here on 570 KVI. I'm here to help you build a strong financial blueprint 1 week and one show at a time. And our lineup for today's show, we have three awesome guests. We have Sheryl Knowles with the Knowles Team at Keller Williams, here to discuss the real estate team, the key players that are involved in a successful real estate transaction, or understanding who they are so you have a successful real estate transaction is why we've invited Sheryl in studio. Also, I have Jim Black with Absolute Return Solutions. Get your answers to retirement planning, what you need to know to prepare. And last in studio is Jeff Smoot with Highpoint Law Group. Halloween's coming up, but I didn't make up the term zombie deeds. I didn't even know there was zombies deeds. So it's awesome to have Jeff in studio to break it down and talk about what this is. So pretty important information we have to share today. Great guest. Great information as always. Please take down our phone number, 1-888-987-0570. Again, it's 1-888-987-0570. If you want to reach me or any of my guests in studio today, that's the number to call. Also, you can reach me online at themoneyhour.com. Again, that's themoneyhour.com. And let's start out the show, as always, with a little money chat. Compound interest. Oh my gosh, what an amazing thing compound interest is, the eighth wonder of the world. Compound interest helps you get further along with your path to financial security. And I thought I would just go through this and break it down. It's always nice for us to hear things more than once, and we've probably heard about compound interest many, many times. But as talking about it, you might hear it from a different angle and realize what a huge impact that this can make. And since we do have a money guy here today from Financial Planning Arena and talking about that, it's just really important to understand how to maximize our dollars. So the magic of compound interest, if we take a look at a dollar, let's just say that your dollar grew at an 8% on a tax-deferred basis, would accumulate to just over $10 in 30 years. So if we had $1 growing at an 8% tax deferred, it would be $10 in 30 years, while $1 growing at a 4% on a tax deferred basis would accumulate to just under $3.25 in 30 years. So think about this, on an 8% return, take a dollar to just over $10 in 30 years. And if you figure it a 4% return, it would double, or it would be in half of that, which would be $5. But it doesn't. It grows only to $3.25. This is the magic of compound interest. Einstein called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world. Achieving a return 2 times as great will produce a balance more than 3 times as large over a 30-year period. So time value of money, compounding rate of return, compounding interest. The magic of it is you have much more money to grow at a much higher return. So if you use an 8% return in this example, because Standard & Poor's, the S&P 500 index, is averaged 9.7 years over a 30-year period. Investing has its downturns over the short period of time, but historically, if you just look at long term, I think an 8% return is a good example to look at. This calculation ignores the ultimate impact of taxes on the account, which are due upon withdrawal. The actual results in the market obviously are going to vary, so I want to make sure that I'm not giving any actual return that you're going to see. It just depends on what investments you have and what your money's actually going to do for you. But again, just for hypothetical examples only. Would you rather receive a one-time payout of $1 million? Or if you looked at 10 cents, if you look at 10 cents and you were to double that 10 cents every single day for 30 years, which would you rather have? One-time payout $1 million? Or 10% that would double every day for 30 years. I said 30 years, but it's actually 30 days. So if you had 10 cents, doubled it every single day for 30 days versus a one-time million payout, which would you rather have? You would definitely want the 10 cents, doubling it for 30 days. It seems unbelievable, but if you actually take a calculator and you take 10 cents and you double that investment every day for 30 days, it's going to come out to over $53 million because of compound. Compounding that interest makes a huge difference. Now, I also want to go over the rule of 72 because if you're just looking at some simple math, and I love math, obviously I do mortgages for a living, and I like simple ways to calculate things. And the rule of 72 is to be able to do a compound interest problem in your head using the rule of 72. So the rule 72 says that in order to find the number of years required to double your money at any given interest rate, you can just divide the interest rate into 72. So for an example, if you want to know how long it would take to double your money at an 8% interest, at an 8% return, divide 8 into 72, and that would be 9 years. So it would take you 9 years at an 8% return to double your investment. The rule of 72 is remarkably accurate as long as the interest rate is less than 20%. I don't know why that is, but that's just what it shows. So you can also run it backwards. If you want to double your money in 6 years, just divide 6 into 72 to determine your required interest rate needed at about a 12%, for a 12% return. So where am I going with this? Just talking about mortgages and bringing this in is the opportunity to refinance. Interest rates are really low still right now. We have seen an increase in interest rates because of different things that are happening in the bond market, which is a direct effect to interest rates. And we've seen them go up, but historically, they're still really, really low. So if you could get into a 30-year fixed rate mortgage at a 4.5% interest rate, it's really inexpensive. Now, talk to your accountant. I'm not a licensed CPA, but the true cost of what the interest costs you is less than what the actual rate is because you get a write-off on that interest. So take whatever tax bracket you are and subtract that from the interest rate, and that will give you a pretty good idea of what that might be in the actual cost of interest rate. So if you have an opportunity with the values appreciated in property, you might be in a position that you could take some cash out of your home. And if that fits within your financial plan to be able to draw that cash out, if you're able to do that at maybe at a 4.5% interest rate, depending on where your rate's at now, you just want to look at that money over a long period of time and compare what the cost is. Really easy to do that by looking at your amortization schedule. So you can see on an amortization schedule how much it would cost over a period of time. That period of time obviously is going to be the time that you're going to keep that loan. And you can look at it two ways. You can look at the interest that it's going to cost you, and you might look at that angle if you're looking over the full term of the mortgage. If you're not looking at the full term of the mortgage and you plan on paying that property off or getting rid of that loan in sometime in that 30-year term or whatever the term is that you're looking at to refinance, look at how long you plan on keeping that property, how many years, and find out what you're going to owe at that period of time. And the difference with what you would owe if you did not take that cash out, that's going to give you an amount of money, and that's what you need to determine whether you're going to be able to get that to grow at a higher return than whatever the cost of that money would be. So it's just analyzing and looking at the true cost in comparison to taking it out on your home and being able to invest it versus sticking with what you have right now. Now, if you're going to borrow $100,000 at a 4.5% interest rate, the payment would be $506 a month. So if you just look at the payment side of it, if you had a $100,000 investment earning at an 8% return over 30 years, that would be just over $1 million. If you look at the $506 a month payment over a 30-year period, you're paying $182 a month in payments. Again, you could look at it from that angle, at your interest rate, the cost of the interest rate, or how much you would actually owe. So that's what I have for Money Chat today. I'm going to go ahead and take us to break. And coming up next on the Money Hour, the key players on your team when you're closing on a real estate deal. Pretty important. There's quite a few of them. And I have Sheryl Knowles with the Knowles Team at Keller Williams in studio to break it down for us right here on 570 KVI after the short break.
Are you afraid of running out of money during your retirement? Jim Black with Absolute Return Solutions has a process to help retirees overcome their basic fears. Jim is a certified financial planner and author of the award-winning book, Happily Ever After. Retirement doesn't have to be just a fairy tale. With 25 years of experience, he has been helping people create comprehensive retirement plans that last a lifetime.
Hi, this is Jim Black with Absolute Return Solutions, 425-558-3700. Or go to our website, absolutereturnsolutions.com, 425-558-3700.
Isn't it time you start getting what you want? I'm Jason Watacha, owner of Noble Ridge Construction, specialist in custom home building and remodeling. It's time to make yourself happy and create the home that fits your desires and style. That process starts by visiting us at nobleridgeconstruction.com or follow us on Facebook to get inspired. You can also see featured custom lots available, architects, and Signature Series homes for sale by us. nobleridgeconstruction.com. That's nobleridgeconstruction.com. Dreams begin here.
Here's amazing news from Solterra Systems. Install solar in your home right now and save 50 to 90%. That's right. Incentives cover 50 to 90% of your cost. Here's Amy Carpenter.
Go Solar and Washington State will pay you for all the energy you create, even if you use it in your own home. Get on the fast track to free energy with zero down financing. These incentives end soon, so call us today.
Call Solterra Systems for a free site assessment. 800-865-9005 or useyourroof.com. That's useyourroof.com.
This is the Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, on Talk Radio 570 KBI. Now, back to the show with local mortgage and finance expert, Tina Mitchell.
Welcome back to the Money Hour on 570 KBI. This is your mortgage expert and your host, Tina Mitchell. I bring into studio each week the best of the best experts in our local market to talk on everything money. I'm here to help you in today's economy to maximize and make the most money that you can with your investments and everything else that we have to invest in. And in studio, my first guest, Sheryl Knowles with the Knowles Team at Keller Williams. There's a realtor, lender, inspector, escrow, title. Those are just a few people that are involved in the team to have a successful real estate transaction. And understanding those key players and the importance of them and what they actually do is going to make or break your real estate purchase or your real estate transaction. And so excited to have you in studio today, Sheryl.
Thank you, Tina. I'm glad to be here again.
Sheryl's been licensed since 1989 and has been a managing broker since 1995. She's a state director for South King County Association of Realtors and is a certified residential specialist with only 5% of almost 1 million realtors in the United States have achieved this. So pretty high achievement there, Sheryl.
Thank you. I enjoy what I do.
Yeah, she definitely does. She works a lot, and it's really great to have her in studio. So, Sheryl, let's go ahead and start out the show with the professionals, and they each do a specific thing to ensure a successful real estate closing. Could you give our listeners an overview of who this is?
Absolutely. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes when you're actually selling a home, and there's a lot of players on to get a home sold. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, you have the broker, the real estate broker. You have a loan officer. You have processors. You have title. You have escrow. You have attorneys. You have contractors. And everybody has to be able to play in the game in order to get the property sold.
And so the key part of that is finding a team of people that are the best of what they do. And I think it's important looking to you, Sheryl, as real estate, if they're choosing a real estate representation, that you kind of have that established team together that you work with, correct?
Yes. My belief in doing it for so long that a lot of times transactions do not close, and a lot of times it's due to the team players not getting along, from the selling agent to the listing agent. I find a lot of times that if we can all get along, as they say, we can get a transaction closed.
Definitely. Let's start with mortgage. And I know I could talk a little bit about that because that's what I do, Sheryl, but yes. I want to hear it from your standpoint. And the first thing, you get your contract together. And when you're looking at mortgage, how's that going with your team?
Well, Tina, before we really want to have the buyers go out and seek a property, we want to make sure that they're qualified, not just from the broker standpoint, but also from the consumer, because it's really not fair to take a buyer out and show them let's say $400,000 homes, when really realistically maybe they can only afford three and a quarter. So everybody's wasted our time. So I want to make sure that when we take our buyers out, Tina, that they've talked to you and that they can feel good, that they're in a price range that they're comfortable. And in return, I know that when I'm showing them the homes, I'm confident that they could be able to afford this home.
And I think it's really important. There's two ways that you look at payment. The bank is going to approve you for the very maximum that you can approve for, but also you have your objective in a payment. And I think it's so important to talk with your mortgage consultant to really dial into what you feel comfortable making on a monthly basis. Because I guarantee you, a lot of the times, I would say probably 80% of the times that I work with buyers, their objective is less than what the bank is loaning. And so you need to really, really dial in and figure that out. What's the next team member, Sheryl?
So actually, what will happen is once you find the property that you want to make an offer on, again, before we even make an offer on that property, we always go back to the loan officer, Tina, and make sure that we have a closing date that you're comfortable with.
Okay.
What kind of closing costs do we need? What's the time frame? And also, a lot of times the buyers want to make sure and double check that they're comfortable with the payment. And once we've got that secured, then at that point, then we'll make an offer on the property. Once the offer is accepted, then we have the home inspection. And so now we're dealing with a home inspector. And the other thing we have, and a lot of agents do not realize this, nor do they recommend, is sewer scopes.
So talk a little bit about that, Sheryl.
Yes. Well, sewer scopes, a lot of times you have properties that, even if it's new construction or older homes, you have your sewer line. And through the years, they clog up. You have roots. Sometimes they're deteriorated. And your buyer could be, have a bill anywhere from maybe $3,000 to $4,000 to $22,000 because of a sewer line that is not functioning correctly. And a lot of agents, for some reason, just do not think that that's important, nor do they really know that. It kind of comes back to, you know what you don't know.
Exactly.
And so please make sure that when you do, even new construction, because sometimes it doesn't get hooked up. And that's around $150 to $200 fee. So you have your home inspector at anywhere around $400 to $500 and your sewer scopes.
So, and again, it's important that you're working with a real estate agent that has a lot of transactions under their belt, because just as Sheryl said, you don't know what you don't know. Correct. And it's kind of getting in there and seeing these things happening and then realizing that there's a better way to do it, or there's people that got left out of the process.
Exactly.
So give me some examples or share with our listeners on the title side, Sheryl, and the importance of that title representative and that company and areas of concern or things that can happen there if they don't have the right team player.
Correct. Well, we have liens on properties, and it's really important that those liens get taken care of. That could be anywhere from a sewer bill not being paid. It could be contractors that have liens against the properties, child support liens. There could be all different kinds of liens that need to be taken care of. Encumbrances. Maybe there's a walkway or something down to a lake, and maybe the neighbors have had the rights for years to walk down a certain path, and that could be your property, and you need to know about those kind of things. And that might be perfectly fine with you, but it's what you don't know that's not always fine.
And doing that, getting some research from your title, when you're working with putting a transaction together, Sheryl, I know that you have your team together, and when that title position and that title person that does all of your title searches, you're doing all that research up front for the most part as much as you can to understand what can come up.
Exactly. And a lot of times on the contracts, we'll have it subject to the buyer having usually 5 days to be able to review that title report and to be able to have the freedom to call the title rep themselves and make sure that they're comfortable in what they're getting into. Because again, as real estate brokers, that's not our profession. We might see red flags, but at that point, then it's our job then to forward that to whoever needs to be, an attorney, a title rep, a contractor.
Okay. What about easements, Sheryl?
Easements, well, those are always things, too, that we need to take a look at. And again, if there's any kind of easements on the property, then I will either have them refer back to the title company or to an attorney so that they're comfortable with what they're getting into.
Okay. So we talked a little bit about the lender. We talked a little bit about title. Who's next?
Well, then once we've come to it's a full circle. We have the purchase and sales agreement. We have the loan officer then that needs to make sure that the property is approved for financing, which is the appraisal. Oh my goodness, the appraisal. Tina, we've had a few issues lately with appraisals, and maybe you want to give us a little clue of why we're having some of these problems with appraisals.
Well, and it's a little bit soon as with the Dodd-Frank Act, lenders are not choosing their own appraisers, and you can look at this from both sides of it. The whole purpose of HVSC was really to take away the control from the lender of having a relationship with the appraiser to steer and possibly affect the opinion of that appraisal value to come in possibly higher than what it is. So you can understand that side of it where they're all randomly chosen, and so it's really fair that way. The hard thing is really the service level and not having that communication with the appraiser that you used to be able to if there was issues coming up, because now the lender cannot communicate with them. It's all going directly with you on the real estate side, Sheryl, or with the buyer, and your service level as far as time commitment as well. So that's just the biggest challenge, is just a shift in the business that just as you on the real estate side has your team of people set up, on the lending side, our team really was the appraiser. That was the person that we built the relationship with, we were communicating with. And so that's really where the challenge is not having that. As far as the value, I mean, value is what it is, but there's always an opinion. And so that opinion can be a little bit higher on the lower side. But I think take that out of it. It's just the level of service and the communication not being there. What are you seeing with the appraisals?
Well, I'm seeing appraisals right now that are within anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 difference low, which really surprises me because, again, as you said, it's a matter of opinion.
Yep.
And when you've got to $2,000 to $5,000 difference, of course, this is just me being the broker. It's like, come on, can't we all come to the table here and do a little bit of different adjustments? And a lot of times it's very common to have multiple offers. And a lot of times the market sets the market.
Sure.
I mean, it sets the prices.
Value is what it is. You have to have the comparables, but it's nice to hear what you have to say as well, Sheryl, because that's exactly what I'm saying, but just in a little different way. That yes, there is an opinion, and it's finding, being the opinion being on the more side that's going to support the value or not. So once the appraisal's gone out, that's what it is, and then you've got to figure out how to work from it from there. So who's next?
So a lot of times, well, for my team, we always make sure that the buyers have a home warranty.
Okay.
I really think a home warranty is overlooked also within our industry.
Yeah, I very rarely see.
You rarely see that. In California, everything has to have a home warranty. Washington State, no. However, for a seller, the benefit for a seller is once you list your property, it does not cost the seller anything to have a home warranty. And if a furnace should go bad or you need plumbing, anything that needs to be done, for anywhere from $75 to $100, the servicer will go out and take care of that issue. And the seller hasn't even paid for the home warranty yet. So once it closes, then the home warranty is forwarded to the buyer.
Okay.
So for a year, the buyer has the good feeling, a feeling that if the dishwasher should go bad or the refrigerator or something, that it's being taken care of for $75 or $100. So I like home warranties. Most of my sellers will all do a home warranty when they list the property, and we guarantee all our buyers will get a home warranty, even if we have to pay for it out of our own pocket.
Yeah, I think these are just the little things to set aside your property, because that is huge. So, Sheryl, I want to make sure that we touch base on escrow, because we never have enough time when you're in studio. But let's talk a little bit about escrow.
Escrow is where everything happens. Escrow is where the buyers and the sellers sign all the documents in order to transfer title to the buyer. And the escrow company is a neutral party. All that they are is responsible for what the contract says. They don't do what I tell them to do. They don't tell them the buyer or the seller cannot give them orders. They go by the contract. And so the escrow company is responsible for the monies. They want to make sure that the money goes where it's supposed to go. The buyer's bringing in the right amount of money. The seller's receiving the right amount of money. All the liens are taken care of before it closes.
Okay.
they make sure that the deed is recorded at the courthouse, and then the buyers at that point then can have the keys to the house, which takes sometimes 24 hours after you sign the documents.
Yeah, escrow is pretty important. They do everything at the last minute, have to make sure everything lines up perfectly.
Absolutely.
So, a little bit of a hard job. Sheryl, thank you so much for coming back in studio and
My
sharing
pleasure.
your expertise with my listeners. Coming up next in the Money Hour, there are a lot of complicated decisions that you need to make when it comes to retirement and planning for retirement. The earlier you start, the easier it can be, and understanding what those things are that you should be doing now is pretty important. Jim Black with Absolute Return Solutions right here on 570 KBI after this short break.
If you want to save thousands of dollars when you buy a home, today's real estate market is giving you that opportunity, especially with HUD-owned or bank-owned homes. It's easier and never more affordable. The Knowles Team knows how to guide you to these homes because they list both HUD homes and bank-owned homes, and they know all the rules, guidelines, and procedures because they've sold so many of them. Call the Knowles Team today and prepare to be moved.
This is Sheryl Knowles. You can reach me at 206-793-8881. Again, Sheryl with the Knowles Team at 206-793-8881.
Here's amazing news from Solterra Systems. Install solar in your home right now and save 50 to 90%. That's right. Incentives cover 50 to 90% of your cost. Here's Amy Carpenter.
Go Solar and Washington State will pay you for all the energy you create, even if you use it in your own home. Get on the fast track to free energy with zero down financing. These incentives end soon, so call us today.
Call Solterra Systems for a free site assessment. 800-865-9005 or useyourroof.com. That's useyourroof.com.
Isn't it time you start getting what you want? I'm Jason Watacha, owner of Noble Ridge Construction, specialist in custom home building and remodeling. It's time to make yourself happy and create the home that fits your desires and style. That process starts by visiting us at nobleridgeconstruction.com or follow us on Facebook to get inspired. You can also see featured custom lots available, architects, and Signature Series homes for sale by us. nobleridgeconstruction.com. That's nobleridgeconstruction.com. Dreams begin here.
This is the Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, on Talk Radio 570 KBI. Now, back to the show with local mortgage and finance expert, Tina Mitchell.
Welcome back to the Money Hour with your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell. Each week, I share expert advice and inside knowledge on how today's events affect our local economy and can also affect your money. In studio right now, Jim Black with Absolute Return Solutions. As you approach the day, you begin the next phase of your life. You face a series of decisions that could spell the difference between comfortable retirement and one of financial stress. And that's why it's always exciting to have an expert in this arena, because your financial planning is such a big part of our overall everything. So, Jim, thanks for coming into studio today.
Thanks for having me.
Jim Black has been providing advice to clients for over 25 years. In that time, he has worked for some of the largest financial institutions in the world and advised clients in nearly all phases of the financial spectrum. A few years ago, Jim wrote a best-selling book, Happy Ever After, Retirement Doesn't Have to Be Just a Fairy Tale. What a nice title. He's been featured on many TV shows and radio programs, especially right here at the Money Hour. And recently, he made a guest appearance on the New Day Northwest of King 5. So you have lots of experience. You have a little bit of media experience. And so it's great to have you here on my show as well.
Thank you.
So let's go ahead and start it out, Jim. And what I would like to do, I'd like to talk just a little bit about what your book is and the reason you wrote it.
Okay. The reason I wrote Happily Ever After was over the course of, as you pointed out, the last 25 years, what I found was a lot of people that came into my office and over the course of their first couple of years in retirement made what they thought were very small decisions or decisions that had no particular bearing on their future. And then down the road, 5 or 10 years, they found that they were on the verge of either having to go back to work or move in with the kids or some other things that they certainly hadn't predicted. And so the concept of the book was basically to tell people that the rules have changed. Once you get the last paycheck you're ever going to get for the rest of your life, you have to do things differently.
Definitely. And so the rules change after you retire. How are they changing?
Well, the biggest thing is once you've acquired that nest egg, you've worked for 30 or 40 years to accumulate your assets. The assets aren't ever going to get any bigger. You're now taking money from those assets. So if you make a mistake, there are no do-overs. You can't go back to work for another 20 or 30 years and reestablish your nest egg.
So being that there are no do-overs and assuming that people do not want to go back to work, how do they protect themselves out of running out of money?
The number one thing I would say is to actually have a plan. I saw a study from AARP just a few years ago, and it said that only 1 person in 20 would retire with the income that they needed and wanted for the rest of their lives.
Wow.
Yet everybody, when they retire, thinks they're going to have the income that they need and wanted. And so the biggest thing is to create a plan that's going to give them basically to replace that paycheck, to give them that income.
Okay. So if we talk about a distribution plan?
Well, a distribution plan basically is different. Most everybody that people are familiar with when they think of a financial planner are what are called accumulation planners. They tell people to save money, $25 a month or $1,000 a month until they retire or travel or whatever those things happen to be. I'm exactly the opposite. What we tell people is they need a plan that's going to give them that income, that's going to give them something from a safe place, not to worry about necessarily what's happening in the market.
So what are some of those income plans? Are there guarantees on it, or how are they set up?
Typically what we do to set up a plan is I'm a strong believer in the concept of bucket planning, which is starting to get a lot of media attention here in the last couple of years. But basically what that means is I separate the assets into various places. I call them bucket A, B, C, D, etc.
Okay.
And the buckets then are really just time periods. Times when they can pull the money. So bucket A is going to be from some type of a liquid account, whether it's a savings account or a short-term CD or something where they're going to make sure that money is going to be there when they need it in 30 or 60 days. Bucket B or C are typically longer-term accounts, things like treasuries or CDs. It can be annuities or municipal bonds or corporate bonds or something along that line. But still, somebody has to say, we guarantee the principal. That's typically what we're going to do in some kind of a short bucket for that first, say, 5 to 10, sometimes even 15 years into retirement.
Okay. And so some of those guaranteed that would go into that bucket would be what?
Something that's guaranteed as far as the income.
Okay.
Typically, that's going to be something where they're going to have very easy access to it, and somebody is standing behind the money, whether it's the federal government or an insurance company or even the FDIC, but somebody's saying that money's going to be there when you actually need it. It's not about the return at that point. It's about actually having the money.
Okay. And so what are you doing with your long-term assets?
Well, when it comes to longer term, something longer than 10 or 15 years, that's really where people can and probably should still have money in the market. The biggest mistake we see people make coming through here is maybe having too much money in that arena that they're going to need right away. But my business partner, Brian Decker, actually runs the longer-term money. He's a fiduciary and has been running the money for about 26 years. So he has focused on the concept of absolute return models.
Okay, so let's talk about your company name, Absolute Return Solutions. Not to get confused with Absolute Mortgage, because I'm part of Absolute Mortgage, which is no relationship to Absolute Return Solutions. But explain where that name came from. Well, it's a good name, by the way.
Thank you. Absolute Return Solutions is really an industry term, and it has to do with the concept of models that are designed to make money whether the market goes up or down. So it allows someone who's actually running an absolute return model to take a look at what's happening in the market. Now, Brian, for example, he doesn't believe a darn thing that anybody on Wall Street says anymore, or Ben Bernanke.
I think a lot of people listening probably the same thing with my listeners.
And so, I mean, he's been doing this long enough that he's seen sometimes where you get somebody on TV and they'll give you a recommendation and you find out after the fact that they sold it when it ran up. And so there's a lot of things out there. And so the concept of an absolute return model simply is if something's going up, Brian buys it. When it stops going up or starts going down, he sells it. It's really that simple.
And there are simple rules and strategies to success, and it's funny once you figure those out and follow them, you can have some good results from it. So you have 2 cardinal rules. What are those?
Well, the first cardinal rule is never, and I mean never, ever, ever, draw income from a fluctuating account. And that sounds a little confusing at first, but
I was just going to say, explain that.
Basically what that's saying is just about everybody who comes into my office who is in retirement or going into retirement violates this rule, because that's what the industry says. They said, well, if you just take out 4% of your money, you keep all of your money at risk and high risk and medium risk and low risk, and just take out 4%, well, you'll probably be okay. The reality is, over the course of the last decade, not only would you not be okay, you'd be broke. And so what we're saying is, if you're taking income from someplace, it needs to be someplace that has a guaranteed principal.
Okay.
If it doesn't have a guaranteed principal, basically you're risking your future on the roll of the market.
So we hear a lot about choices, a lot of choices that the baby boomers have, and that they've got to make choices and decide where they're going. So starting Social Security, what is your advice for people around Social Security?
Typically, I'm going to say wait.
Okay.
As far as the Social Security Administration is concerned, they're saying, from the most recent numbers that I saw, that over 90% of the people who apply for Social Security are taking it right when they turn 62. And I suppose that's okay, but the biggest problem people say is, well, gee, you know what if Social Security goes broke? I want to get as much money as I can. Well, I don't think that that's really realistic. Like, I don't think that the default is really going to happen.
Okay.
But people take it because they're afraid of the future, of what might happen. But the reality is, simply by managing how you draw Social Security, especially if you have both spouses who have qualified for Social Security, the difference that you can get by doing just some basic planning can be over $300,000 by the time you get to age 90. A significant difference.
So is there advice that you give regarding Social Security with married couples and how they're supposed to do that? And is there areas that they can make the wrong decision by not knowing?
Absolutely. In fact, the biggest thing is, once you make a decision, you can't undo it.
Okay.
And if you call the Social Security Administration, they're not allowed to give you advice or direction. So the first thing I would tell people, if there's both spouses have qualified for Social Security, the first concept you need to be aware of is called file and suspend. And file and suspend allows not only a spouse to draw a benefit on what the other spouse has earned on their Social Security, it allows both numbers or both amounts to continue to grow all the way to age 70. So that even though you're drawing Social Security, your benefit, as far as the federal government is concerned, is still increasing.
Okay.
And so then you're able to switch over to the higher number and then have that higher number for the rest of your life.
So what if somebody is actually divorced? Is there something different with Social Security when you've been divorced that you need to do, or is that ex-spouse going to receive that Social Security income? Well,
divorce is an interesting situation.
Okay.
With divorce, if you've been married at least 10 years, you can actually draw benefits based on your previous spouse's Social Security.
That's what I'm just going through a personal thing, and I just heard that, and I was like, oh my gosh, you've got to be kidding me. That seems ridiculous.
In fact, I actually have a client who had to choose between 3 different husbands.
Well, what if I was if there's two? If there's 2 ex-wives, does it go to the one that was married to him for the longest period of time, or
actually as long as you were married for 10 years, you could have multiple ex-wives all drawing on your Social Security benefit. No wonder they're broke.
I was just gonna say, it just doesn't sound like a very good plan, because if you're divorced, you wouldn't think that that they could draw on those benefits. So another really important topic, I think, is long care term insurance. So talk a little bit about that. How expensive is it? What are the options?
Boy, long-term care has changed dramatically in just the last 5 years. For somebody who hasn't looked at it in 5 years, it is so different. I have people coming into the office again every day who are walking in who have what I call traditional long-term care, which is you pay a lump, so you pay money on a monthly or an annual basis, and they agree to give you some lump sum amount if you need it for Social Security too, or excuse me, not Social Security, but long-term care benefits, a couple $100,000, $3, $4, whatever it is. But what's happening is people are walking in the office and they're going, hey, I just got my notice and my long-term care premium doubled in the last year, or it's up 55%, or it's up 60%. And I had someone in my office, she came in and she said, you know what, I've been paying on this for 10 years, and now I can't afford to keep it, now that I think I'm really going to need it.
Yeah.
And so one of the great things about baby boomers is we changed the world. And so long-term care is going to be another one of those. And because of that, we're starting to see a couple of different ways to do long-term care other than the traditional.
Okay.
There's a concept out there called asset-based long-term care, which simply says that you can set money aside. Say you had it for $50,000 in a CD. If you put it in a long-term care, the asset-based long-term care program, now they're going to give you back 3 times or 4 times, depending upon your health, of what you put into it. So your $50,000 becomes worth $200,000. Or if you die and don't need it, which with regular long-term care you just lose it, they give you back double what you put in. So that's been really popular. The other one that we just are seeing now in the state of Washington is life insurance companies are getting in the game. They're saying that, yeah, you buy our life insurance, and of course if you die, obviously you collect your life insurance.
Sure.
But if you need the money for long-term care, they said, hey, we'll let you spend the death benefit while you're still alive.
That's awesome.
Which is a nice benefit.
So, Jim, what about important traits that a retiree should look for when searching for a financial advisor?
The first thing I would recommend when someone's looking for a financial advisor is to deal with a fiduciary, someone who has a legal responsibility and liability to do what's in your best interest. The other thing I would look for is a CFP, somebody which is a certified financial planner, somebody who actually has training and knows what they're supposed to do and how to do it.
So it's important. It's important you work with quality people. We talked about that with Sheryl with your real estate team, your financial planning team, and your financial planner is going to make or break your experience and make and break your retirement. So you need to work with the best. Any information that you want on topics discussed today, pick up the phone, give the show a call, 1-888-987-0570. Again, that's 1-888-987-0570 or online at themoneyhour.com. And you can actually talk to Jim directly if you pick up the phone and give me a call. Coming up next on the Money Hour, did you walk away from your home and assume that the bank was going to foreclose? What if they didn't? What would that actually mean, and what could happen? Jeff Smoot with Highpoint Law Group is going to answer that question right here on 570 KVI after this short break.
Do you worry about making your next mortgage payment or saving your home from foreclosure? If so, you should consult an attorney. Highpoint Law Group helps individuals and small business owners turn financial distress into financial success. Call Highpoint Law Group today.
Hi, this is Jeff Smoot with Highpoint Law Group. You can reach me at 206-999-8375 or by email at jeff@highpointlawgroup.com. That is 206-999-8375 or email jeff@highpointlawgroup.com.
Highpoint Law Group is a debt relief agency helping people file for bankruptcy relief under the Bankruptcy Code.
Isn't it time you start getting what you want? I'm Jason Watacha, owner of Noble Ridge Construction, specialist in custom home building and remodeling. It's time to make yourself happy and create the home that fits your desires and style. That process starts by visiting us at nobleridgeconstruction.com or follow us on Facebook to get inspired. You can also see featured custom lots available, architects, and signature series homes for sale by us. nobleridgeconstruction.com. That's nobleridgeconstruction.com. Dreams begin here.
This is the Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, on Talk Radio 570 KBI. Now, back to the show with local mortgage and finance expert, Tina Mitchell.
Welcome back to the Money Hour with your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell. I am dedicated to my listeners, providing you with the tools needed to make informed decisions on matters that affect your money. And in studio right now, we have Jeff Smoot with Highpoint Law Group, here to talk about foreclosure and zombie deeds. And I mentioned at the beginning of the show, zombie deeds. You would think we would just make that up for Halloween, because we are in the month of Halloween, right, Jeff?
We are.
But this is really something, it's called zombie deeds.
Yes, it's not a name that I made up, but about a year ago, people started writing blogs and articles about this, and I thought that was a good topic for the pre-Halloween time.
Perfect, just appropriate. So Jeff worked his way up through legal profession from weekend mail clerk at Seattle firm in 1984 up to founding member of Highpoint Law Group in 2013. He became an attorney in 2007 after more than 18 years working as a litigation and bankruptcy paralegal, and opened his own firm, Highpoint Law Group, in 2013. Jeff's practice is primarily focused on representing individuals and small business owners who are suffering from financial distress, as well as creditors in bankruptcy and receivership cases. He also assists individual and small business owners in formulating and implementing strategies to maximize liability and protect assets. So, Jeff, really excited to have you in studio first time.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, so let's just get right to it and talk about zombie deed. What is a zombie deed?
Well, there are two types of zombie deeds, and the first one I'm going to talk about is, as you alluded to earlier, when you would walk away from your home, thinking that if you hand over the keys to the bank's going to take it over, or the bank's got a foreclosure scheduled, and you just leave thinking that the sale's going to happen.
Okay.
But it doesn't. And then a few months down the road, you get a notice, say, from the city that you're being fined $100 a day because there's graffiti on your house.
Wow.
Or worse.
So there's two. If you think that you're going through a foreclosure, so you just walk away. That's where the zombie deed could take effect.
Yes, because if the bank does not foreclose,
okay,
then you are still on title to the house.
Got it.
And you are still responsible for whatever happens to the house or on the property. So, for instance, I mentioned graffiti. The Seattle's graffiti nuisance ordinance provides $100 a day fine up to $5,000.
Okay.
A gas line could explode. This has happened in different parts of the country. Gas line that was left on exploded. The house caught on fire, and the house next door also caught on fire. The owners, because they were still on title and the bank had not taken the property back, they were liable.
And so depending on whether or not if they were paying their own insurance, they're in big trouble. If it was included in escrow, then that would have been that would have been okay.
It would have been covered. And then condominiums are a big issue. People are walking away from condominiums left and right. And the banks are not eager to foreclose on condominiums because they don't want to pay the assessments and the dues that are coming due every month. So they will sit there and let you be responsible for that for as long as it takes for either the association to foreclose or for the property to sell. So with condominium assessments, if you file bankruptcy, you can discharge the pre-petition portion of the assessments, whatever was due as of the time you filed bankruptcy. But there's a provision in the bankruptcy code that says any post-petition assessments, even special assessments, you're still responsible for those, even if you thought that you discharged those in bankruptcy.
So what could somebody do then to prevent this from happening? I mean, what's the solution?
Well, there are several things that can be done. Don't move out of the property until the foreclosure is completed.
Okay.
You don't have to go up and watch the sale actually happen, but you're going to get a notice after the sale that says you have a certain number of days to move out or you'll be evicted.
Okay.
You can rent out your home or your condominium. If you want to move out, you can rent it out and make sure that the renters will be covering the dues or assessments or paying the utilities, paying the insurance. So you haven't walked away, you haven't left the property unattended, and you're making sure that at least somebody's there to take care of the property while you're not there.
Okay.
You can offer the bank a deed in lieu of foreclosure.
Yep.
Banks will take those. Or you can negotiate a short sale with the bank. That's an effective way to get yourself off of title. There may be tax complications for doing that. I can talk about those in a bit here. And if you own a condo or live in a homeowners association, you can approach the association and ask if they will take a deed in lieu or take a quitclaim deed or whatever to get you off of title.
Okay.
And that will allow the association to sell or rent out the unit for themselves to pay the assessments that come due. But the key thing is to get yourself off of title as quickly as possible if you are going to leave the property.
So why would there be other reasons why the bank wouldn't foreclose? Are there other reasons why?
Well, it used to be
that they make that strategic decision.
It used to be before the mortgage lending crisis that we've experienced. Banks, they would foreclose. It would happen.
Sure.
But they had so much inventory that they aren't really in a hurry to foreclose. And this is why strategic defaulters have been allowed sometimes to live in a home without paying their mortgage for years.
Which we see a lot of that has been happening. And I think some of it's strategic and what didn't start out strategic, but then it's just delayed for so long that they're just waiting until the bank kicks them out, not knowing it actually has been a long time that people have been staying in their homes.
It's been many years. I think one of my clients was successful in doing that for 4 years and counting.
Wow. So in filing bankruptcy, can we go back to that a little bit, Jeff? And because this is in your arena and you work with a lot of clients and advising on this, and filing bankruptcy, does that completely eliminate the zombie deed?
No, filing bankruptcy won't kill a zombie deed.
Okay. Wow, you just look at bankruptcy killing everything.
Well, it doesn't relieve condominium association dues that accrue post petition.
Okay.
And for this deed, you are still on title.
Okay.
So when you file bankruptcy, it's still your property
Sure.
until you're able to sell it through a short sale, or a Chapter 7 trustee will sell it through a short sale. So you're still on title, and once you file bankruptcy, it discharges anything that happened before the bankruptcy, but it doesn't discharge anything that happens after the bankruptcy.
Okay.
So if you file bankruptcy today and tomorrow something happens on the property that you're still on title on, you could be responsible for that.
Okay.
But when you file bankruptcy, typically you will file a document called a statement of intention, which tells the creditors and the court that your intention is to either keep the property or surrender the property.
Okay.
And many people, when they file, believe that if they check the box that says, I want to surrender the property, that's just the clear road that now the bank's going to take it and everything's fine.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily the case. A bank can still delay. They don't have to foreclose. And there's not much that you can do in a bankruptcy court to force a bank to go ahead and finish the foreclosure.
Can't force the bank to do anything.
No, you can try.
You can try. So in making yourself removed from title, making sure that that's happening, how are you doing that?
Well, again, one way is to go approach the bank and get a deed in lieu of foreclosure.
Okay.
Or a short sale. And Chapter 7 trustees in bankruptcy cases will take on a short sale for you because they're able to carve out some money for creditors through that process. So that those are, when you're in bankruptcy, those are probably the two most effective ways to do that. And on that note, if we're talking about bankruptcy, doing that before you file bankruptcy, if you were to do a short sale or give the bank a deed in lieu of foreclosure, the timing of that could have tax implications.
Sure.
Because there's a thing called cancellation of debt income.
Okay.
And if the bank forgives debt by taking a deed in lieu or a short sale where it's forgiving some of the debt, you may at the end of the year get a Form 1099-C.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't know what a 1099-C is, but they're quite shocked to receive that.
Yep.
I have a client who recently was granted a forgiveness of over $150,000 of a second mortgage. Surprisingly, the bank just said, you don't have to pay it.
Yep.
That's great.
Which there's a lot of that going on as well, especially when you get into the modification side where they're just completely forgiving second mortgages or huge amounts of that.
Yes.
So when you get that 1099, if that's not getting forgiven and you're not protected somehow, if you had a $100,000 second mortgage and you're a 30% tax bracket, that's a pretty surprising bill to have to pay.
Yes, it looks as if you just made $150,000 last year that you didn't know about, but it's not a good thing. You have to pay taxes on it.
So the Mortgage Debt Relief Act of 2007 how is that protecting and because that's still in place, they just keep extending it over and over again, but that's an option that can save and protect them there.
Yes, that's true. For qualified principal residents, it does provide an exception from the forgiveness of debt taxation.
And that expires when?
I don't know when it expires.
Yeah, they keep extending it. So until the economy recovers, I'm sure that it will. So homeowners horror stories that you've seen, what can you share with our listeners to maybe help them not have that same issue happen to them? Are there any other stories you want to share?
Sure. There's as I mentioned earlier, there is another type of zombie deed, and that's a situation where a homeowner will refinance a property.
Okay.
And right now, some of the lenders and their servicing agents are in sort of a state of disarray as to who has the paperwork and whether you got paid, whether your loan modification will be accepted by a second servicer. So you will get a refinance and you will think that you paid off the underlying deed of trust. But then a new servicer will pop up a few weeks or a few months later and send you a bill saying, hey, this didn't go through, so you need to pay us this however much money that you thought you'd paid.
And so what would they do if that call happened?
Well, then you would have to get copies of your closing statement and the deed that was recorded and show them that there was a reconveyance of the deed of trust was recorded.
So maybe being able to go back to escrow and getting some assistance there. So how would you help them prevent that from happening? Just having everything lined up and making sure that you've got that documents and...
Yes,
in hand.
Just keep a copy of your closing file, keep a copy of the recorded deed on hand, or the reconveyance on hand, so that you can provide it to them whenever that happens.
Okay.
And it's especially important. There are scammers out there, believe it or not, who will prey on people who have just refinanced their home or paid off a loan. And this happened to someone I know, not a client. But a week after they had paid off their loan, the scammers must be looking at the title record, the recorded documents, to see who had a full reconveyance of a loan recorded on their property. They will contact that homeowner and say, hey, there was a problem. We didn't get enough money from you to pay off the refinance. So you need to come in and pay us another $10,000 or whatever it is.
Gosh.
And elderly homeowners who do this are especially vulnerable to this.
Of course.
So that's something where don't believe what somebody's telling you on the phone. If that happens, go down and talk to your banker or your mortgage representative or whoever.
And I think that the escrow is a really good, as Sheryl mentioned before, that third-party disinterest. I mean, really, that's what escrow is there. Their main purpose is to make sure money gets transferred and all completed. And so if there's any issue that comes up there, I'd pick up the phone and call escrow and have them navigate you through the process. See, that just goes by so quick. I'm going to have you back in studio. We didn't get through all the information, but it was nice to bring in Zamidi, because I have not heard of it before, and I've done a lot on interviewing on the bankruptcy side and on the distress side, and so that was interesting information that you shared. Thank you so much, Jeff.
It was great to be here.
And that is the show. We had 3 awesome guests, awesome topics in studio. If you do have questions, they'll be here for a little while longer. So pick up the phone, 1-888-987-0570. Again, that's 1-888-987-0570. Or if you just want to call later in the week, we'll definitely connect you with any of our guests. And I want to thank everyone for listening to the show today. I'm going to be here again, same place, same time, next Sunday, right here on 570 KBI. Have a fantastic weekend, and I'll talk to you next Sunday.
Are you behind on your mortgage payments and unsure about the road ahead? Magnum Law Group helps families just like yours navigate through the foreclosure avoidance process. Are you underwater on your home and unsure what to do? Magnum Law Group will help you understand your options. Are you facing foreclosure and need to stop a trustee sale? Magnum Law Group has success in doing this and may be able to help you too. If you're tired of dealing with the banks and getting turned down for loan modification, Magnum Law Group will take on the banks for you and lead you through the process for the best possible outcome. They lead the competition with superior knowledge and expertise.
This is Craig from Magnum. You can reach us at 425-605-6393 or at www.magnumlawgroup.com. See you at the next seminar.
The preceding program was paid for by Absolute Mortgage, a division of Pinnacle Capital Mortgage Corporation. Absolute Mortgage Company, NMLS number 81395 and Washington CL number 81395, is an equal opportunity housing lender. Tina Mitchell, MLO number 145420, is a licensed loan originator with Absolute Mortgage. Visit absoluteloans.com or call 888-90-HOMES for cost information.